Hello again, biologists. Mr. Kinnear here with another video lesson for National 5 Biology. We're on Unit 1 Cell Biology. Today we're looking at the structure of the membrane, which is Key Area 1.2a. So this is part of Key Area 1.2 transport across cell membranes. So we're going to chunk this up into 2 or 3 video lessons just to make sure it's clear to you. This builds on our first key area 1.1 because we're obviously talking about the cell membrane and how it does its job, and then we'll filter in to the rest of the key areas within cell biology. So in terms of the SQA information, you are required to know that the cell membrane consists of phospholipids and proteins, and it's selectively permeable. That phrase is something we came across in our last video lesson. So obviously my intentions for your learning is that we look at the structure and composition of the cell membrane. So in key area 1.1 in our first video, we looked at all 4 cell types, and cell membrane is a structure that is in all 4 cell types. So that is something that could come up in your exams. Name a structure that is present in all 4 cell types, and cell membrane would be one of those. But the key question for today is, what is the function of that cell membrane? So if you think back to your notes, think back to the previous video, and think, what is the function of that cell membrane? And like we said in the first video, the cell membrane, its job is to control what enters and leaves the cell. So today we're going to look at how that structure and how it's made up does that job. One of the first things we need to consider when we're thinking about a cell membrane and what it looks like is that previously we've been drawing cells in 2 dimensions. Flat bit of paper, flat diagram, just 2 dimensions. But obviously an animal cell and a plant cell are both 3-dimensional objects. They have a cell membrane that surrounds them in total 3D. So we're going to have a look at what happens down here and what happens down here. Again, we're going to look at it as a cross-cut of a cell membrane. So what does that layer look like if we look at it perhaps from side on? So we're going to look at this cell membrane in a cross-section. It's also known as a plasma membrane, and it has quite a complex structure. It consists of 2 layers of phospholipid molecules, which will explain what they look like and what they do. But that's why it's also called a phospholipid bilayer. So obviously bi meaning 2, so 2 layers, bilayer. And here we have it. And effectively what I think about is a sandwich when I look at this diagram. So we're looking at the sandwich at the middle. So we're looking at 2 chunks of bread effectively and a filling. But please don't describe it like that in your test. So what we have here is a layer of phospholipids, so those circles with 2 tails, and then another layer. And as you can see, the circles, the phosphate heads are facing out the way of our membrane with the lipid tails in the middle. So again, just for obviously your notes, then it's outside the cell here and inside the cell. And it also contains proteins. So we've got 3 different protein molecules within this phospholipid bilayer. We've got this protein, which is sitting outside the cell. We've got 1 protein that sits inside the cell, and this large protein that is sitting all the way through the phospholipid bilayer. So we'll go down into a further layer of detail. So here we have our phospholipid as I described in the previous diagram. So the phospholipids consist of a phosphate head and a fatty tail. So this phosphate head is water-loving or hydrophilic. So they are on either side of the membrane in contact with the water outside the cell and inside the cell. And the fatty tails, so 2 fatty tails per phospholipid, they are water-hating. So they are in the middle of the membrane. So they're the kind of filling of our sandwich, so to speak. And our protein molecules, the ones that go all the way through our plasma membrane, can be channels or pores through the membrane, allowing molecules or substances to pass through the membrane. That can be into the cell or out of the cell, depending on the substances involved. So this is a 3D computer-generated mock-up of a protein channel. As you can see here, there's 4 different protein molecules that all link together. They would sit within the phospholipid bilayer, and right in the middle here is a pore that would selectively allow different molecules to pass from outside the cell into the cell. The cell membrane is also referred to as a fluid mosaic model for 2 simple reasons. The membrane is described as fluid because it can change shape, so it can bend and move due to pressures inside and outside of the cell, but also those proteins that are embedded within our phospholipid bilayer can also move around. They're not in a fixed position. And mosaic because it's made of lots of different types of molecules. So we've got proteins in here. Obviously, as you go higher up in your biology, you might learn about some other substances, but at the moment we are just saying that a cell membrane consists of phospholipids and proteins. So that's us covered off key area 1.2a, the structure of a membrane. So we've looked at cell membranes present on every cell type. They're semi-permeable. They consist of 2 molecules, proteins and phospholipids, and we've looked at the structure and function of those. And it can also be referred to as a fluid mosaic model and or a plasma membrane. So that's us. Hopefully you found that interesting and informative. As always, if you have any problems or questions or queries, let me know and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.